Hey, are you looking for something to play on PC in 2023? Well, we've got you covered with these new and upcoming games and release dates. We've actually got a whopping 50 games to talk about, so let's get started off with number 50. Wild Hearts is essentially the Monster Hunter competitor. It's a collaboration between Koei Tecmo, believe it or not, and Electronic Arts, and it's actually pretty cool. There's an emphasis on use of gadgets and kind of almost Fortnite-style building to take down your opponents. It's got its own really special things to stand out, and although it's had some PC performance issues, it's pretty cool. Next, over at number 49, we have Pizza Tower, which is a really underrated kind of platformer adventure game with an old school style and a really cool look to the whole thing. I mean, just look at it. It looks like a hilarious, ridiculous cartoon, and the whole thing is about venturing through levels and up a tower as this pizza chef to save your pizza place. Honestly, if you ask me, that's the pitch for a perfect platformer game. So, yeah. Next, over at number 48, this year we're getting the Killer Clowns game. Yeah, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the game is dropping, and it's another asymmetrical multiplayer style game where you can cause all kinds of chaos as those gross, nasty, hilarious clowns. We don't know for sure how this one's going to turn out, but I mean, just the Killer Clowns, with a K, getting recognition in 2023 is pretty cool and worth celebrating. Now, next over at number 47, we have Returnal. Yes, the PlayStation exclusive game has made its way over to PC, and it's a great port, and it's a game worth checking out. It's incredibly challenging, it's run-based, it's got an intriguing story, mystery to it, and just some really beautiful sci-fi elements from the art to the music. It's pretty wild. Returnal was already a pretty legendary game on PlayStation 5, and now we're happy that PC players can experience it too. Now, next over at number 46, we have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yet again, an asymmetrical multiplayer style game centered around an old school horror franchise. This one is from Gun, the people specifically behind the Friday the 13th asymmetrical multiplayer game, which we really liked despite its flaws. So here you can either play as survivors or the nasty, gross family, including, of course, Leatherface. And it seems like the level is meticulously recreating the house and the surrounding areas, and there's some potential for some fun here. It seems like they're really going all in on this one. Next over at number 45, we have Hi-Fi Rush, a game from Tango Gameworks that we did not see coming, as they usually do horror. But Hi-Fi Rush is a really cool action-adventure kind of beat-em-up game with rhythm-based combat. So picture Devil May Cry, but you gotta worry about striking, dodging, and timing things to the beat. It's definitely accessible, even if you got no rhythm, it's still fun to pick up and play. It's got an incredible art style and a real good emphasis on cartoony fun. It feels like a celebration of music, classic cartoons, anime, and video games, and you can't get any better than that. Next over at number 44, we have Stray Blade. This is an action-adventure game where you play as this rogue adventurer exploring a big land. It's apparently a pretty challenging game, and despite the kind of colorful, upbeat art style, it seems like it's going to actually have some Souls elements. It's Point Blank Games, the developer and publisher 505 spin on the genre, it seems, but there's still a lot to be revealed about this one, but thankfully it's releasing April 20th of this year. Next over at number 43, we have A Space for the Unbound. This is a narrative adventure game with a lot of charm to it, but it also tackles like psychological elements and a lot of emotional stuff centered around two high school sweethearts. The town is falling to crap, and it's about the characters like facing their inner demons and dealing with other people in the community. And it sounds simple, but it seems like people have really been digging it. It released earlier in 2023, but it's been popping off. And the best part is that there's actually a demo available on Steam if you want to check it out. Next over at number 42, we have Season, A Letter to the Future. Believe it or not, we actually thought this was a PlayStation exclusive, but it is also on PC, and it is a quality experience with a kind of open world that you're exploring and figuring out this adventure. It's mostly story-based. You're not doing anything too intense. It's honestly kind of like a vibe-based game. Some reviewers have actually explained the game as dreamlike, and I think that's pretty spot on. If you're looking for something fascinating, beautiful, and a bit more slower paced, consider Season. Next, over at number 41, we have RoboCop Rogue City. Now, as the diehard RoboCop fan at GameRanks, I am still skeptical of this one at the time of this video releasing. We haven't seen too much of it other than just a brief snippet of gameplay that seems pretty serious and action-focused. Interestingly enough, it's first-person shooter, and I know a lot of people out there really wanted to play as RoboCop in third person, but I think if they do it right with all the visual, like the visor systems and everything like that, and prime directives, they could nail it. Still, we don't know for sure, but it is also from publisher Nacon and developer Teon, who are also responsible for the most recent Terminator game that actually did a good job of at least understanding the source material, even if it was a flawed game. RoboCop just deserves a kick-ass new game in 2023, so we're hoping this one drops this year, and it is great. Next, over at number 40, we have Atomic Heart. If you're looking for a weird, unique first-person shooter set in a very different world and a kind of alternate dystopian future where the Soviet Union prospered and developed all this weird, crazy technology, including robots that have come to life and you need to kill them, this is your type of game. A lot of people have said it's kind of Bioshock-inspired. It didn't feel like that to us. It felt more like a Wolfenstein type of thing with some open-world elements. It is a deeply flawed game. We want to say that up front. But if you're just looking for something fresh, unique, you should still consider it. Next, over at number 39, we have a Nice Death. I mean, look at the main character. It's literally Death, the Grim Reaper. And you're playing as him in a 2D action roguelike. And essentially, it seems like you're kind of the boss and you got to deal with all your employees' crap and them really giving up on the job. It's got a really cool cartoony style, a really different vibe to it. And if you like a good hack and slash action roguelike, consider jumping in. It released earlier in the spring and people have been loving it. Next, over at number 38, we have Darkest Dungeon 2. Yep, the greats have returned with, once again, a very challenging, very intense game where you have to worry about managing your characters, your party, to an almost stressful degree. I'd say if you never played the original Darkest Dungeon, if you're looking for something like where you really have to care about your men, like XCOM, but with a bit more of a medieval kind of dark horror spin on it, that's the best thing I can compare it to. Not really in terms of gameplay, but in the level of challenge and thought involved. Next, over at number 37, we have Dredge. This is kind of like a fishing ship game, but also a narrative adventure. There's a lot to it. It's a pretty chill game, but with some really good writing and an actually pretty decent fishing mechanic, even if you're not into fishing games. This one has been really kind of clicking with a lot of people, so consider it. Now, next, over at number 36, we have Tekken 8. I mean, holy crap. Have you seen the gameplay of this thing? It looks absolutely wild. From returning characters to just over-the-top effects, backdrops, and seemingly good combat, Tekken 8 looks like it's going to be pretty awesome. We haven't gotten our hands on it yet, but it does seem like it's dropping this year, and it seems like it's going to be a good year for fighting games. Let's just say that. Now, next, over at number 35, we have Sons of the Forest, which has released in early access, and it's the follow-up to, of course, the mega smash hit, The Forest. And this one seems to go even crazier. You have a really cool AI companion, you have more things to worry about, more things to fend off, and a bigger world. Like we said, it is still in early access, so a lot of people have kind of already ran through it already, but we're expecting a lot more from this developer, considering the success of The Forest. Next, over at number 34, we have Octopath Traveler 2. Essentially, what the developers did here is took what worked in the first game and really drew upon that to create something seemingly even better. The people who've played through this game in its entirety seem to prefer it over the original. I mean, cool art style aside, it's really about the story here, and it seems like it really worked. Now, next, over at number 33, we have Wolong Fallen Dynasty. This is Team Ninja's next Souls-like spin-off style game, and this is kind of almost like their take on Sekiro, with an emphasis on parrying and sword-based combat that is very satisfying. It's accessible, it's a little boring in terms of like enemy types and environments, but that combat can be really damn thrilling, and it is still absolutely worth checking out if you like this genre. Now, next, over at number 32, we have Payday 3. As of right now, we don't know too much about this one, but we do know we should be seeing it this year. They've been working on this one for a while. The Payday games are competitive, fun bank robbery shooters that have been beloved by people for a long time in the PC world, so Payday 3 could be a big deal. Keep your eye on it. Next, over at number 31, we have Layers of Fears. This is essentially a re-release, repackaging of the Layers of Fear games, but seemingly with new graphics, everything kind of updated, and new little twists kind of thrown in here and there. We don't know too much about it, but we do know it is dropping soon, and it's a good reason to revisit those games because they were pretty sweet. Next, over at number 30, we have Alone in the Dark. This is kind of like a reimagining of the original old game, with a little bit more of an over-the-shoulder kind of third-person camera navigation and combat and stuff like that. We don't know too much about it yet. This kind of like surprise dropped announced this year, but the return of Alone in the Dark and actually embracing horror, survival horror, mystery, we're all for it. We are absolutely keeping our eyes on this one. Now, next over at number 29, we have Atlas Fallen. This is from the developers behind The Surge and The Surge 2, but they're going in a different direction. It's not really a Souls-like or anything like that. This seems kind of like an old-school, open-world action-adventure game with a cool kind of fantasy character, big, over-the-top combat abilities, and scary monsters. This has been delayed a few times, but it looks like a refreshing thing. It kind of looks like a mix between Nier Automata and just kind of an old-school Xbox 360, PS3 combat game, like a Darksiders type of thing. And you know what? That checks some of my boxes. Now, over at number 28, we have Exoprimal, which is that dinosaur game that when it was first announced by Capcom, people thought it was going to be Dino Crisis. It is certainly not Dino Crisis. It's actually way crazier than that. This is like a PvE VP like shooter with so much chaos to the point where like the dinosaurs are raining from the sky and you got to hop in mech suits and murder them and also compete against other players. It's really wild and weird, but it works. It seems like people have been enjoying the beta and we're excited to see more from it this year. Next, over at number 27, we have Arc Raiders. This is like a sci-fi, seemingly free-to-play co-op shooter with just a really cool art style to it, and it being in third person. Honestly, there are so many first-person shooters out there. We love some third-person love every once in a while, and just the style of this one is why we've kept our eye on it. Now, next over at number 26, we have The Finals. This is a new multiplayer first-person shooter from some ex-Battlefield developers, and this is like a crazy over-the-top, seemingly Unreal Engine 5 game with beautiful graphics and incredible destruction in small arenas with fast-paced combat. So picture like the destruction of the old Battlefield days with a fast-paced shooter, and you got The Finals. It's got a little bit of a game show-style spin on it, and the beta was pretty sweet. The destruction is really satisfying. To blow a hole in the wall and then punch an enemy in the face, or just drop a whole building on the opposing team is pretty sweet, and we're excited to see what more comes of this one. Coming down to the halfway mark, we have Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl. This is the return of the classic PC franchise, and it's got big shoes to fill because those original games were game changers for PC players. But thankfully, from what we've seen so far, it does look pretty sweet. I mean, from the graphics to all the weird scientific anomalies. The developers have had an uphill battle working on this one, but we're excited to finally see more of it soon. Now, next over at number 24, we have Ark 2. This is the follow-up to Ark Survival Evolved, one of the biggest mainstream survival games to ever hit. That thing was on like every platform. I feel like everybody played it, even if it was kind of busted at the start. But Ark 2 is seemingly going bigger and badder with more budget and Vin Diesel in the game. So yeah, there's that. He's apparently also working on it in some capacity. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, Ark 2 might drop this year. Now, next over at number 23, Alan Wake 2 is slated for this year. We are huge Remedy fans here, from Max Payne to, of course, most recently Control, and Alan Wake finally getting a sequel is great. The people behind Remedy have said that they're going more for survival horror this time, less of like a story action-adventure game, so for them to embrace horror, we're all for it. The original game was creepy, but we hope they take it even further. Next over at number 22, we have Lords of the Fallen. Yep, this is the next game in the Lords of the Fallen series, but it's going in a very different direction, if you could tell, stylistically, way more fantasy-oriented, and probably still having that kind of Souls-like combat, but it looks pretty sweet, not gonna lie. The brief glimpses we've seen seem pretty promising. And next, over at number 21, we have Counter-Strike 2. Yes, believe it or not, Valve, after all this time, is finally updating CSGO to a whole new thing with new tech, seemingly new gameplay enhancements, new maps, all that stuff. This is a really, really big deal in a certain sector of the PC gaming market or culture. So when this does drop, which is fairly soon, I expect it to be a pretty big deal. Next, over at number 20, we have Homeworld 3. This is the return of the sci-fi RTS series with some crazy looking fleet combat. I mean, this stuff so far from what we've seen looks really over the top and like they've really stepped it up. If you like space battles, navigating complete 3D space environments and really being careful about every move and also just being impressed by the vistas and the technology and the graphics they have here, Homeworld 3 might keep you busy this year. This one's for the real nerds. Shout out to them. Now, next over at number 19, speaking of real nerds, we have Lord of the Rings Return to Moria. If you're a fan of the dwarven stuff from Lord of the Rings, look no further because they've taken the concept of dwarven mines from Lord of the Rings and applied a really cool gameplay concept to it. This is like a survival crafting game, but like you're building up the mines and you can do it with friends, and it just seems like a really good idea. If you can see the gameplay, it's cool. That's all we really have to say about that one. We love Lord of the Rings. But moving on over to number 18, we have Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Now, this doesn't have an official release date at the time of making this video, but they've been working on it for a while, and we're hoping we see it this year because it is the follow-up to the incredible Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. The graphics seem to be next level here. We've seen Xbox tease it a lot on their platforms, but we know it's dropping on Xbox and PC, and we hope it's good or even better than the first one, because the first one was great, but it had room for improvement, and we hope they kill it. Next, over at number 17, we have Baldur's Gate 3. This one has been in early access for a long time, man, and it's a long time coming. The full release is finally coming this year, and people are pretty excited. If you like top-down, good old RPG action, Baldur's Gate seems like it's going to have a lot, from interesting stories and paths to characters. It seems like they got you covered after all this time. Next, over at number 16, we're going to go out on a limb here and talk Pragmata. This was announced a little while back as a PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and PC game from Capcom in the RE engine, and it almost seems kind of like Hideo Kojima-esque, weird and trippy sci-fi. Apparently it's going to have some exploration elements and space stuff. Can you tell that there's not really a lot out about this game yet? It's slated for 2023, but we haven't heard anything in a while. Capcom might just come out of the dark with this one. Who knows? But we're going to wait. Next, over at number 15, we have Aliens Dark Descent. The licensed Aliens games have been hit or miss, but when they hit, they really hit. And this one seems like it might hit. It's like a top-down RTS action game where you play as colonial marines facing off against Xenos. You're clearing rooms, you're exploring, you're kind of growing out the fog of war, which in this case is darkness, and you illuminate it with your marines as flashlights. You have to manage their stress levels and their weaponry, and it seems like it's shaping up to be pretty awesome. Next, over at number 14, we have Dead Island 2. Dead Island 2 was announced almost like it feels like freaking 10 years ago or something like that. It's gone through multiple developers, and now it's finally releasing soon. You're going to go to Hollywood, California, and slash a bunch of zombies in open environments. Not open world, though. It's actually kind of level-based, but with big levels, lots of creative over-the-top weaponry, and a ton of gore. We've been waiting a long time for this one. We don't know if it's going to like live up to that years-long wait, but as long as it's a decent zombie game, we're in. Now, next over at number 13, we have Ubisoft's Skull and Bones. This is their kind of competitive, online, multiplayer pirate game where you can build your own pirate ship, man your own crew, and navigate the high seas and either team up with friends or fight against them and steal their treasure. It's actually seemed like it was pretty ambitious, but this is one that's been in the chamber with Ubisoft for a long time. It seems like they've really struggled to get this one off the ground, but 2023 seems like it's going to be finally the year. We've seen gameplay, we kind of have a bit more of an idea of what the game is going to be, so yeah, fingers crossed. We just like pirate games. We like playing as pirates, and we want to see them succeed. Next, over at number 12, we have Forza Motorsport 2023. The mainline series is back with no numbers. It's just Forza Motorsport. That's it. And it's going to have, of course, even crazier graphics and more detailed cars than before, better weather effects, better track effects, environmental effects, and we're excited to see more from this one soon. Now, over at number 11, we have Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. This is Ubisoft's first-person Avatar game, which, as of right now, we haven't seen too much of, but people are billing it as kind of like Avatar with the Far Cry formula. I'm sure there's going to be some differences to it, but to be honest, Avatar is cool. I know some people bash it, but Avatar is pretty cool. It's one of the most popular movies in the world for a reason, and we're excited to see them build out that world in a video game. It's just begging for it. The movie feels like a video game, so it makes sense to kind of go this way. Now over at number 10, we have Star Wars Jedi Survivor. This is the follow-up to Respawn's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, featuring Cal Kestis trying to find his way in a galaxy without a Jedi Order. And now he seems like he's going on a bigger adventure. Literally. Bigger worlds, more fast travel, a bunch of different fighting styles, mounts, new characters. We're excited for this one. We really like the original, and thankfully, we're not going to have to wait too much longer for this one. Now, next over at number 9, Street Fighter 6. I said 2023 seems like it's going to be a pretty damn good year for fighting games, and while I was talking about Tekken 8, I'm also very much talking about Street Fighter 6. I mean, have you seen the gameplay videos? The combat seems awesome, the new characters seem interesting, the cool new spins on classic characters seem great, the visuals seem awesome. I'm a casual fighting game fan, so I don't know how the community is going to take to this one, but it seems promising looking from afar. Now, next over at number 8, we have Redfall. This is Arcane's next game, and they're going even further, it seems, from the Arcane formula. Gone are the days of Dishonored. This is very much a co-op open world shooter where it's you with your own special abilities or gadgets facing off against a town ruled by vampires and their cult follower underlings. The jury's still out on this one. It's hard to see if there's that Arcane charm or if it's just a standard run-of-the-mill co-op shooter. You can play it single player at least, which is cool, and there are little bits of Arcane creativity there in terms of the writing, the enemy designs, the sense of place. We're excited to see how this one really shakes out because we really like Arcane's previous games. Next over at number 7, we have the big one, dude, Diablo 4. The beta has been pretty awesome. People have been responding to it very well. The Diablo games are great, the mainline ones, I mean. And I'm curious to see how this thing shakes out in terms of monetization with Activision Blizzard. They've said it's only going to be cosmetic stuff, but who knows how that's actually going to go down. Either way, Diablo is a legendary PC franchise, and we're excited to see it finally continue. Next over at number 6, we have the Dead Space remake. Now, this doesn't completely overhaul or change up the flow or story of the original Dead Space, but the graphics are better, the combat's a little tighter, and EA Motive, the developers, sprinkled in some really cool little additions that just make sense. It is a really good representation of the original game. It doesn't lose the charm, it doesn't cut anything, and if you've never played the original Dead Space, this is how you should play it. The graphics kick ass, and the game kicks ass. It did then, and it does now. Next over at number 5, we have Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Now, this was one of our most hyped games for a while because it's from Rocksteady, the people behind the Batman Arkham games. But this seems now more and more that we see it kind of like a live service action co-op-y game with a bunch of menus and stats where we kind of just wanted to play as the Suicide Squad or some sort of superhero in the world of the Arkhamverse. But this one might get delayed out of 2024. We don't know for sure. We still just want to see what the deal is with it, but we're not going to completely judge it until we get our hands on it. Of course, we do the before you buy videos here, so keep your eyes on those. Next, over at number 4, we have Hogwarts Legacy. The people who have been dying for a big open world action adventure Harry Potter game essentially got their wish here. You can explore a pretty big map with little wizarding towns like Hogsmeade, and of course, all of Hogwarts with all its secrets with your own created character and a pretty cool adventure. Next over at number 3, we have Dragon Age Dreadwolf. Yeah, we're going to include it. We're really hoping we see it this year. Is it a little wishful thinking? Maybe. But we're really waiting for EA and BioWare to drop something from this, and we think they could really redeem themselves. People absolutely love Dragon Age, and we really hope they take it to the next level here. Now, down to number 2, we have the Resident Evil 4 remake. This is the bigger, badder Resident Evil 4 with a slightly darker tone, but still doesn't lose sight of how goofy it can be. There are a couple of things cut, but ultimately, this is a really fun and awesome representation of Resident Evil 4. It's still fun to blast away at all these creatures and gross men. The adventure is absolutely wild, Leon is badass, and if you've never played Resident Evil 4, this is a good way to jump in. Now down to number 1, of course, we have Starfield. We're excited about this one specifically because it's Bethesda's next game, but really, it's Bethesda's new thing. For the longest time, they've been alternating between making Fallout games and Elder Scrolls games, and now they're doing something completely different, a space-based RPG where you can build your own ship, land on different planets, and do quests and adventures. We haven't seen too much of it. We're going to know more in the summer, and we really hope it shakes out to be awesome. People have grown skeptical of Bethesda, of course, but if this one hits, it's going to really hit, and we just hope it does. Those are 50 games, but of course, some bonus games worth mentioning. Of course, The Last of Us Part 1 has come to PC this year. The port had a little bit of a rough release. I think that's an understatement, but hopefully they fix that. Also, Cyberpunk 2077 is getting a full expansion with Phantom Liberty, and we're hoping to see more from that soon. We have Crysis 4. Yes, Crysis 4 was announced, so we're not sure if we're gonna really see it in 2023, but we're hoping. They've kept us in the dark on this one for a while, and we're hoping that this is the year where it finally drops and melts everybody's computers. We don't really know too much about it yet at the time of making this video, but yeah, keep an eye for it. But those are 50 games dropping on PC this year. Believe it or not, there's actually more than 50. So if we missed something or there's just like a favorite, let us know in the comments. We could talk about these games for what seems like an eternity. There's so many games. So let us know what you're looking forward to. If you like this video, you like just kind of listening to us, we upload every day. Clicking the like button helps us out. Thank you very much. But that's it. As always, thanks for watching.